Welcome to the Word Cafe podcast. This podcast has been designed with curated content that centers on the power of words. Can we really do anything without speaking? Can we really do anything without the agency of words? Yes, that is what this podcast is all about. And I am your host, Amakri Isoboye, your neighborhood word trader. I believe in the power of words, for it is the unit of creation. I trade in words to profit my world. Hello, good evening, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good everything. Yes, we're here again at the Word Cafe live show. It's always fun coming here to share moments with you and, discuss those topical issues and get into it and all that. Today, I have one wonderful guest to, share some exciting moments on what you want to know? Human resources. Yes, human resources and the disruption. Perry Teams is his name. Perry was the person that did the forward to my book, my HR notebook, an exciting personality. He's here, he's around. Don't worry, I'll bring him in shortly. And please go ahead, join in on the conversation as we, go around and talking and all that. I know you will be blessed. Give me a minute there now. Yay! I have Perry Teams with me here today. Hi, Perry.
Hi, yes. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm good. How are you doing today?
Yeah, really good. I've had one of those days where I've been through a screen doing the work that I do, but you can still make some really strong connections. And I've just come from a learning session where the team and I have been looking at the power of thinking more and talking less. So really revealing day today. Thank you.
Awesome. Yes, before I brought you on board, I was telling them, sharing with them who Perry Teams is, one thing I take away from Perry Teams is reaching out to him when I was writing my second book, my HR notebook, and got talking with Perry, chatting more or less, and he was like, go ahead, send it across, let me look at it. And Perry did a fantastic job, and he did the forward to my HR notebook, which I am forever grateful, yes. So who is Perry Teams in your own words now? Let's get to meet Perry Teams.
Well, firstly, a genuine pleasure to do the forward to your book. I admired all the passion you put into talking about what HR is and what HR could be. So I've been in the HR profession now for 18 years. I worked in the government, in the civil service for 21 years. And I worked on technology projects, actually, computers in their early days in the 1990s. I wasn't a programmer, but I helped the programmers design the system to help businesses. But I really loved the learning of using a new system and efficiencies and changing the way people worked. So I got into change. And that, I guess, is what I'm part of. Change, organisation design, particularly helping people experience a really fulfilling working life. I've had a terrific time so far in my working life, and I just feel it's everybody's right to have work that's fulfilling and purposeful and brings them to life.
Wonderful. 21 years. That is pretty long. Pretty long.
For sure.
Now, 2020 brought about so many disruptions, massive scale across the globe. So many industries, if not all, experienced this massive disruption. Now, I wanted to share with us, how has HR evolved in all of this?
Yeah, that is really the question, isn't it? Because if we go back exactly 1 year, then we were starting to feel the impacts of lockdown, of severe illness and death, and a very unsafe world. because of the pandemic. But what HR specifically did during that time was, I think, it stood up and it meant something to be in HR that was very different from the year before, because we really had to look after people. We had to keep businesses going. We had to interpret law. We had to introduce new financial measures. I can only say that the experiences I had with some of my professional colleagues was pretty heroic. Long hours, complicated situations, demands, and having to create things really in short timeframes, very quick. I think we stepped up. So I think the evolution of us was accelerated last year in businesses understanding the importance of having good human resource professionals to help you navigate human crises, business continuity, safety, and I guess long-term survival. Yeah, that's how I would frame last year and the implications. Yeah.
Massive evolution, I must say there. Now, you know, traditionally speaking, we're used to the silos way of working, should I say pre-COVID, so to say. But now the agile structure gradually, or should I say, not really gradually now, it has thrown its weight, so to say, on the on that scene, and you have agile structures. So how do we move from the traditional to the new normal, so to say, from silos to agile structures?
So again, a brilliant point that you make and a great reflection, Apache. So I think the nature of how disruptive the pandemic was to where we worked and how we worked has questioned a number of the orthodox structures that we in HR were actually quite culpable in creating. Boxes, hierarchies, divisions, as you say, they're silos. And so everywhere you would go, people would talk about, we need to find a way to do more cross-functional working, because we work in these vacuums and it's not very efficient or effective. So I think it has blown apart some of those barriers as potentially artificial and enforced by our own attitudes and behaviours, and those that are manufactured have now been somewhat eroded and moved away, and the agile approach has become exactly that. Now, what do I mean by agile? By agile, I mean responsive, I mean rapid, I mean inclusive, and I mean creative. Yes, there is a methodology in technology where you have sprints and scrum masters and all those other things that you associate with agile. But I think we've shown agility and use of agile in the way we've had to just bring people together from different parts of the business, work out a solution to a problem, forget almost what your badge is or your title, and you are there as part of a team to solve a problem. You will work together in a way that's collaborative, it's quite equalized, it isn't about hierarchical rank and preference. And I think we've shown that businesses can do that more rapidly, with more invention and with more inclusion when we adopt that agile approach. And so I think that's here to stay.
Wonderful. Now, how has technology helped in all of this? Because you will agree with me, the digitization came before the pandemic, so to say, and it created this, would I say, platform for midwife in the change, if I must use that word. So what's your take on it? What has it been like?
Totally that. So again, you use such good terminology, platform, exactly the right phrase. There is somebody for your guests and you to look up, a practitioner called Simone Cicero, based in Italy, who talks about businesses as a platform. And businesses really are a platform. They might have physical assets like buildings and materials, but really they operate as a platform because they bring together assets, resources, knowledge, people, intellect, and so on. And so I love the fact that you've used that analogy. And so digital platforms are just simply a virtual representation of exactly what an organization is. It's a platform to create a successful enterprise that serves people in whatever way. So yes, digital technology was already starting to automate process, to access and connect people, to raise expectations about when things could get done and how quickly. And as you'll probably know, and listeners and followers will too, we were starting to see the advent of more smart technology, more machine learning based, automated, scripted routines which could replicate human capabilities in processing queries and retrieving information and so on.
Yeah.
So I think what COVID-19 kind of proved is that stability of infrastructure has kept the world going. We have been able to understand what's going on, we've been able to work, we've been able to live, we've been able to shop, we've been able to survive because we had that digital capability. So if anybody had any doubts about how significant digital technology would be in shaping the next 5 years, I think we've just seen an enormous compressed exercise to prove that it is the only way, that we digitize and we platform enable our business. Unfortunately, those businesses who have suffered most are those that weren't platformed and that weren't digitally enabled. So yeah, it literally is a survival element, not just a success criterion. So I think there's a challenge for HR people to understand the dynamic of work and digital capability from a different opportunity now. What can humans do with technology and what can technology do of itself? And we need to then think what work sits in what aspect, automated and human. I think that's our next big challenge.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hello, nerds. Come listen to the History Nerds United podcast and let's make history fun again. We interview today's best authors, whether they are established Pulitzer Prize winners or someone debuting their first book. Let us show you that history is not a boring class you took in high school, but a place where the best stories come from. And we don't just cover history. We also love to chat about true crime, biographies, memoirs, and so much more. So head on over to History Nerds United and let us introduce you to your new favorite book and learn the story behind the story.
History Nerds United.
Now, you just took me to the next question, because there's this fear that, we have a lot of technology out there now, and most of these processes that were being done manually, in quote, by humans will be overtaken by machines, and the humans are becoming scared. And if you've seen the movie Matrix, we'll begin to have this Neo syndrome kind of thing. What do you have to say about that?
Yeah, I think with good reason that there is some caution and maybe even some fear. So I think when we look at incidents where technology has failed in some way, so the recent deaths of 2 passengers in an automated Tesla vehicle just kind of proves that sometimes those machines have a fallibility. Normally not, obviously, but sometimes they do. So I think some of the fear and the caution that comes from people feeling displaced by technology now, and that their work is threatened by robotization or automation, when actually, if that work is a good candidate for automation, then the question is really, why do you need a human being, a sentient, creative, emotional human being, to do repetitious work that can be programmed and algorithmically based? And the reality of that is we will want to see people deployed to more of those variable, complex, human, social, emotional, caring responsibilities where only human beings can bring that uniqueness of perspective. So there are a number of theories that actually point to the fact that automation will create some loss of jobs in the short term, but out the other end of it will come actually a wave of new roles, new jobs, more fulfilling, more cognitive, more caring, more human. So I think it's not quite, shall we, take the robots take our jobs, but actually humans find more fulfilling ways to work. Now, that sounds idealistic, but I can see and sense that that's what happens. I'll give you a quick example, actually. In the US military, drones are now replacing normally manned air flights for reconnaissance missions. Now, those drones are pilotless, so you think, there you go, there's a job loss, the pilot's gone. You don't need to build the plane, you build a drone. But the drone has a team of remote pilots and a team of data analysts who work with the feed of live information from the drone. So actually there are 16 new jobs created there. Data analysts who are looking at scanned images, they're looking at data on temperatures and so on. So actually new work is created. This is, I think, the scenario that people aren't quite understanding because they really do get somewhat frozen by fear. So I think automated technology will liberate us to do more high quality humanist work.
Created for upskilling, from what you're saying now, like you need to upskill in your skill set. You need to learn.
Totally. So just as an example in the HR field, right? So at the moment you have HR administrators who receive information from employees and key it into a system. All of that will be automated. But what happens to that HR administrator? Well, somewhere in the chain of reskill, they become the in-house organizational psychologist and counselor, because workplace stress and the challenges of a world need somebody in the workplace who can instantly help with people's anxieties and issues and stresses. I think that's what we'll do. We will see much more duty of care, humanist principles from HR professionals, as well as business savvy, performance enhancing learning and so on. So we won't do administration anymore. We may not even do workplace disputes. They may be algorithmically adjudicated based on evidence, but we will do caring things for humans, enabling things for humans. And I think that's a dawning of a much more high value HR profession than the current one.
Yeah. For what you just said now, it means the HR professionals have a lot to deal with in terms of creating that robust program for developing new skill sets, upskilling, unlearning, relearning, and all that.
Totally. So I think, I've talked about this for a number of years actually, that the biggest skill we have is our ability to learn and relearn. So you're absolutely right. Again, your turn of phrase is brilliant. And I think there's no stronger representation than people in the people profession. We exist to create the circumstances for people to do their best work, and within that is how people learn. So I already see it. I already see roles advertised which are customer service agent and bot programmer, so that somebody is dealing with complex queries and they're still receiving routine ones, and they can build their own bot so that they can deploy the bot to handle the queries that are simple, and then they deal with the overspill of the complex. I don't see that being passed over to a technology team to wait for 2 months to build a bot. We will do that in the normal flow of work. So people call them centaur roles, part digital, part human. Absolutely, we'll see lots more of those.
That's the centaur theory, half human and half.
Exactly. In this case, half human, half machine.
Half machine, more codes. Yes. Yeah. Exactly. I think 2 years ago I went for this programming course on Python. What do we call it now?
Yeah, nice. Yeah, Python.
Yeah. Python. Yes. So I sat out there as they will call it a newbie in that environment. But that was, I think, 2019, before the pandemic, and I was just telling myself, 3 years down the line, this is what is going to come into play. You need to learn how to code. You need to learn how to code in its simplest form. You need to learn this and deploy it into your job function going forward. 100%. And just like what you just said now, it's coming to play. So it's not like you being taken out of the scheme, no, but rather you are being pushed forward to improve on your skill set in handling the new challenges of the future.
You got it. It is exactly that. And it is almost like an augmentation, isn't it? Because it's not just the acquisition of skills. You are leveraging digital capability because you can do that. So I think the superstars of the future are going to be people who are incredibly good at understanding human motivation and human need, and also being able to code that and put things into a computer realm and bring the two together. Yeah.
Do you think the Maslow hierarchy has changed as a result of this?
I think there are some, I would call them sort of fundamentals that we need, and you talked earlier about fear and anxiety that creates a certain tension in people. So I do think we have those deeply rooted behavioral elements that we can't control, and we have to make choices about our reaction to things. So I think Maslow has a number of different strong factors within them. But I suppose if we go up the pyramid, I think there's this sense that you can reach self-actualization. But actually, I see this constant cycle in the middle where you are adapting, and you almost will never reach self-actualization, but your achievements are attuned to the environment that you're in. So you're in this cycle of, as long as you're safe, as long as you've got some factors of confidence in mind, this adapted, perhaps third and fourth level of the hierarchy of needs ought to be almost like the bigger ones, because you'll spend more time there. You know, there's a waiting there. So anchored by safety, stimulated by the motivation factors that sit in that, but constantly retuning yourself, I think, is really what we'll do. Yeah.
Wonderful. What's your prediction for the future? Say the next 5 years, based on what we are seeing playing out now in the industry.
That's a big question, man. I like to think that there is a sort of a moral outcome to both the pandemic and our realizations of how we work that brings more fairness into how people can experience work. And so by that I mean new entrants into the workplace, so graduates and school leavers, and then also those people who have been displaced by the pandemic, who get the chance to reinvent. So I think the next 5 years will be almost directed to economic recovery, but also what I would call social recovery. I think we have been absent from human contact, both strangers and friends and family, for so long that we've got this almost emitting urge to reconnect with people. And part of how we do that is how we can help people reinvent their career paths and choices in employ. So I think for the next 5 years, and you could say that HR professionals are pretty busy in these 5 years, it's all about preparing people for the next 5 years. I think that's what the 5 years will do. And some of that's digital, some of that's human empathy, professional care services, and some of it I think is starting to address things like climate disaster, humanitarian, agricultural, those things. I think we are not short on challenges, my friend. Therefore, I think in order to face into those, I think governments and businesses have got to invest in people's skills in order to architect that future. So yeah, I think the next 5 years will be reskilling people for the next 5 years.
Rescaling people for the next 5 years. I like that. Before I let you go, do you have any project? What are you working on recently?
What am I working on? Some very exciting things, Aramchi, thank you. I've got some organisation design work with charities and a tech organisation. I have some leadership work, both in the voluntary sector and in government, and some really nice projects that are looking at creating that agility that you talked about earlier on, so people can be more efficient, more effective in public services, so that I guess the pressing issue there is the challenges are more complex, but the funding is lower. So how do they meet those two challenges? They have to adapt how they work. So yeah, it's very rewarding to feel part of a big shift in how people approach their work. So projects at the moment are very stimulating, challenging, but really rewarding.
Perry, thank you for coming on the show. Guys, we've been talking with Perry Teams, a HR professional. I mean, mind-blowing from this conversation. I've taken a lot away from this conversation. Like I said earlier, he did the forward to my book, my HR notebook. Before I let him go, I'd like him to say something about my HR notebook. Perry, what do you think?
Yeah.
My book on my book.
So I was very happy to both look over it and then add the forward to it, because I think what you've started to create there is two things. One is an interest in that profession for all the right reasons, the changes it can make to people's lives and the enhancement to business performance. I think you've done a brilliant job of setting that case out. But I think what I liked about it more was that you were inviting people to think beyond that. You were inviting people to think about the future, the challenges, and the things that we know are going to both present brilliant opportunities but also force us into that fearful state. What I really liked about the book is that you put HR's role in the midst of reducing the fear and accelerating the grasp and success in opportunities. So I liked how you positioned HR as part of a very complex but worthwhile movement into a future that I think we'd all like to see. So yeah, I think that's why that book is a really nice commentary on HR now and HR next.
Thank you so much. HR now and HR next. Perry, thank you so much. I have to let you go now. Please don't say no when we call on you again for another sit out like this to share and rub minds. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Till we'll come your way again. This is the World Cafe Live Show with Amakri Isubwe. Bye for now. Thank you, Perry.
Thank you, Amakri. Bye.
Bye. Awesome time it has been with you on the Word Cafe podcast today. Thank you for being there. You can catch me up on my social media handles, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, all at Amakri Isoboye. Also, you can get copies of my books, A Cocktail of Words, The Color of Words, and my HR notebook on Amazon and on Roving Heights online bookstores. You can also subscribe to my YouTube page at the same address. Yes, till we see you again. Bye for now.